Okay, so today I'll be talking a little bit about career and professional development, some of the questions that you guys had about that. Um, so I have a little worksheet here. It's going to be in your Laulima under the resources tab. It's just going to be this one, AMA O2, Career and Professional Development, in case you want to take a look at it and take notes. Okay. Alrighty. So the first question that I had was, how do I politely ask for a pay raise? Okay. So the first principle that we need to apply with this pay raise is never to ask for it without a plan. Okay. So first off, if you have a scheduled meeting with a supervisor or the person who would be approving your pay, don't bring it up as oh, by the way, I'd like a pay raise. You need a dedicated meeting specifically to ask for pay raises, right? A lot of times it's so I should preface this that the advice for this for asking for a pay raise that I'm going to give you is going to be general advice. A lot of times it'll be a little bit different depending on your relationship with your supervisor and whoever else approves your pay increase, right? So if you have a very good relationship with your supervisor, um, you know, you might have a less adversarial um, approach to this. But one thing you should know is that asking for a pay raise is always a fundamentally adversarial process, right? I talk about value co-creation and working together and making sure that the pie is bigger for everybody. But at the end of the day, a company makes a certain amount of dollars, per quarter, whatever it is, right? Or per year. And for every dollar they give you, that's a dollar that they don't have for something else, right? So that's why I say it's fundamentally adversarial because the each individual dollar can only go in one direction, right? So um, you should consider yourself a either the prosecutor, you're prosecuting your case, or as a defense attorney, you're defending yourself, right? Probably in this case, you're a prosecutor. You are bringing a case to the defense, and the defense is the employer. They don't want to give away any additional money, right? So they're going to look at this from their perspective, right? They would like to keep those dollars, right? But you, as the prosecutor, would like to uh, have them release some of those dollars into your account, right? Um, okay, so first off, you should, like I said, you need to ask for a pay raise negotiation, right? And it has to be a separate meeting where you can say, I'd like to talk about my pay. But oftentimes, again, and this relates back to that the idea of your relationship to your employer. So, um, if you have a good relationship with your employer, you might not have to have another offer in the back of your pocket, right? If you have a more contentious relationship with your employer, or you have an employer that is very stingy, right? Um, it would be beneficial to have another offer to go out, look for other jobs, and see what other people are offering. You can either try to find out what comparable people are offering, and this is actually information that would help you in any negotiation. Just looking at to see what people with your similar set of responsibilities are making, and comparing it to what your own salary is. Hopefully, you can find some salary information on that. But the other thing is like I said, if you have a more contentious relationship with your employer, then it's good to have another offer, right? Because a lot of times even though it's not personal, some people can take pay raises as personal, right? They could say, well, I mean, they're not happy with what I'm offering, and I'm so gracious to even give them a job. But that's not true, right? You're creating value for the company. And if you're asking for a pay raise, it's because that value is not being recognized, right? So um, going back to this, I talked about how to address changes in your workplace before. One, identify a problem, propose a solution, provide supporting evidence, or provide a roadmap. right, in order to implement that solution, and then provides a series of benefits that'll result as a result of that change. And you can apply that same framework to your pay raise, right? So you identify a problem, right? Your pay is not meeting expectations. It's not competitive to the market rate, and it's not commensurate with the responsibilities that you have, right? And presumably you've been increasing your proficiency with your job, and you've been attaining additional responsibilities, right? So the more responsible you are, the more pay you should be getting, right? So propose a solution. Step 2, right? How much do you want to get? Say a 10% raise, 20% raise. No reason to be to ask for not very much money, right? Don't one thing I would say with this, as far as like asking for the raise, is not to be too conservative, right? Don't ask for like a double, double 100% increase in your pay. That might be a little bit ridiculous, but a 20% pay is not outside of the realm of possibilities, right? So don't undersell yourself. Ask for what you think that you're worth, and again, have some evidence to back it up, right? So step 3, provide that supporting evidence. 1, your increased proficiency that you've been giving, some key contributions that you've been participating in, either projects or certain deadlines that you were able to meet because that the company was able to meet because of you, certain clients that you've gotten in order that are bringing in real money, real dollars, right, into the company. Your maybe excellence in customer retention or customer service, excellent performance reviews, things like that. All this evidence that tells the company that you are indispensable. The company needs you, right? And that's one thing that you should realize is like the company, there's a lot of this talk in popular media about job creators, right? And job creators are kind of like, oh, everybody hail the job creators, right? They are not creating the jobs. The customers are creating the jobs. The 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 firm is delivering a service, and everybody within that firm is delivering the service. There's no one person that is working the most. Well, I mean, there's no one person that delivers the service by themselves. We'll just say that, right? Without employees, the company would not exist, right? And without fair pay, the company will not exist, right? Okay, so provide your supporting evidence and then highlight your mutual benefits, right? The mutual benefits, i.e., what pain are they going to avoid? I.e., are they going to lose you and then have to pay for another employee? And how can your additional, maybe you can offer to take on additional responsibilities or a new role in the company, and how can you benefit the company in that new role, right? So this is where I say you have to have you have to have a plan of attack when you're asking for this pay raise. You have to provide overwhelming evidence to show them why you are needed, right? And again, this is I want you to consider yourself as the captain of your career, right? So nobody cares about your career as much as you do. Point blank, right? Everybody's busy worrying about themselves. Everybody's busy worrying about their own pay. Everybody's busy about making sure that they please their job, their bosses, or their customers, or things like that, right? And so even though you may, obviously, since we are subjective, we are inside our own heads, we see the things that we do. We see the things that we think about, and we see the things that we accomplish, right? And we think, oh, if I were to evaluate myself, I would be giving myself a lot more money. Well, do not assume that people see those things, right? Do not assume that people see everything that you do. And that actually that's a sign of an excellent employee, in my opinion, right? Someone who doesn't need to be told what to do, someone who I don't have to interact with on a daily basis to say, hey, you need to do this, hey, you need to do that, right? But that's a kind of like a double-edged sword, right? One, yes, that person tends to be an excellent employee, and that's something that I personally appreciate. But there's a lot of people who might take advantage of that. Might take it, they might just expect that you're going to do what you're going to do, and not going to rock the boat, not going to ask for any more money, additional things like that. or they're not going to notice those things. They're just kind of like take for granted that once those things are given to you, it's just taken care of, right? So a lot of times when you don't have as much, day-to-day interaction with the boss, and this is not something that I do, but I've seen other people do this, right? Is like people getting promoted just because they tend to hover around the boss, the person making their thing. They're always talking to him. Oh, they find out that maybe they like college football, right? And say, okay, I'm going to talk to him about college football every day, something like that. So this is how those little boys clubs get started, right? They're started because of that the liking principle, which is one of those six weapons of persuasion that I talk about in one of my previous lectures. Once you get to someone to like you, even if you suck at your job, um, then you can oftentimes get preferential treatment, right? And I'm not saying that you people are going to be doing that, but this is what happens a lot of times. So even though you may be the one deserving, you're getting the most work done. Everybody relies on you to do certain things, and there's nobody else in the company that can do the things that you do. But because another person is that sycophant is the word, someone who like sucks up to the boss and just like puffs them up and makes them feel important, things like that, but doesn't actually get their work done. A lot of times those people can get, like I said, preferential treatment as in first dibs at promotions or things like that, better performance evaluations. Okay. Yeah. And if you I would always consider if you're pay if the company cannot pay you what you think you're worth, have the ability to leave the company, right? If they don't believe that you're worth the money that you think that you're worth, you should have that as the option. If you play poker, they say the most powerful move in poker is the re-raise. So when you're betting, right? Someone makes a bet, someone raises on that bet, and then someone raises on top of that raise, right? So what that means is like you need to be able to escalate. You need to be able to be confident in saying, okay, well, if you're not going to pay me what I'm worth, I'm going to find somebody that is going to pay me from what I'm worth, right? And that's where, again, it depends on the relationship with your employer and if you have another offer in the back of your pocket, right? Okay, so okay, next question: politely decline additional work. Okay, so be direct but polite, right? But it depends on who's asking for the additional favors, right? And there's always going to be people that are going to ask for favors. Always. Always people want preferential treatment because everybody thinks their job is the most important job in the company. Because again, we're looking at things from our subjective perspective, right? We're looking at what I need. What do I need to complete my work, right? And so usually when somebody asks me that I don't really like and they ask me for something, I'm like, and I don't have the time to do it, I'll say, oh, well, I'm sorry, but I can't actually, if I don't like them, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. I have some other things to do. I have some other priorities. Maybe you can talk to somebody else. And usually like I'll refer them to somebody who may or may not have that information. Or you can ask um, another senior person, usually a senior person that has your back, right? So um, if you have hopefully you have this option, right, in your work. I was once asked to, when I was active duty, I was asked to, as an emergency job on a Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock, someone calls up and said, I have an emergency. I need you to install these signs in my storage facility for chemicals, right? So if you ever look at those storage facilities, they have those diamonds that tell you if it's flammable, reactive, etc., right? It was an emergency that they had these signs installed. Even though they had ordered the sign 6 weeks ahead of time and they had gone a lot longer than that without these signs, right? So I had another more senior person in my office, and he picked up the phone. He's like, no, no. I'm not sending my technician out on an emergency job. This is not an emergency. You can submit this as a normal request, and we'll get to it when we have the time, right? But this is not an emergency. I'm not going to send somebody else. So this is why I say hopefully you have somebody that has your back, right? That can defend your time, right? And usually it's going to be someone who is the one who's delegating tasks to you, right? So if you need some if someone else is trying to take up your time, say, hey, talk to this person. You know, I'm doing the priorities that my boss is asking me to take care of right now. If you wanted to add additional things to my plate, you have to talk to them, right? If the request is from someone more senior, like a boss, for example, I basically say the same thing. I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. Um, I'm really committed to completing this other task that's time sensitive or something like that, right? Um, and I just can't do it right now. But maybe you can ask so and so, right? And hopefully you have someone in mind that they could ask, and you definitely in this situation you're going to give a more proactive response. Like, A, you can offer them the contact information. B, you can forward an email with their contact information. C, you can send an email to the party interested, to the person that you've suggested, and CC the boss or whatever, the senior person who's asking for time, and say, hey, so and so is asking for this. Can you help them out? Something like that. So be proactive in doing this. Or you could even call them up, right? Call them up and say, hey, so and so, my boss needs this. I was wondering if you could help them out because I'm just too swamped right now, right? So in those situations, you just kind of be like I said, be a little bit more proactive in how you're responding to the denial, but still be, I'm sorry, I can't, right? That's respectful, and it'll keep you focused and on your priorities, right? Okay. Building confidence in public speaking. So one of the things that I have been harping on, and I'm sure many of you have noticed this in the reviews that I've given in the presentation evaluations, is not not using a script when you're discussing your topic, right? If you're reading a script, you are not learning public speaking. Okay. You're learning how to read in public. That's totally different. Public speaking is about speaking off the top of your head. There's preparation involved, obviously. You have to be prepared. You have to prepare a kind of like a structure of what you're going to be talking about. Hence these notes that I'm using, right? These are going to keep me on track to make sure that I hit all the topics that I need and make sure that I don't deviate too much from any specific aspect of it, right? But yeah, so prepare what you're going to be talking about. You know the general points, go through it in your head and practice it, right? Have your points usually like a paragraph. You have an introduction, a transition, you have a couple of points that you're going to talk about, another transition, and then a conclusion. That kind of structure, right? And just have those points and then speak extemporaneously about those points based on your preparation. Extemporaneously just means off the top of your head, right? So just speak and then practice that, right? Record yourself, watch yourself, and give yourself a time limit, right? And practice it over and over again. First time, maybe the first time you can try it and just kind of like go off the top of your head, and then you watch yourself and then bring it down a little bit. So this is a very important task to do. Your computer has a recording function in it, so use that and record yourself talking about things, and it will help, right? So it's like comedians, right? So some of the best comedians don't work off scripts. They have basic ideas about how they're going to do things, but there's a lot of like give and take. This is how a lot of like off the cuff reaction. This is why they can handle the hecklers, or this is why they can handle little unexpected events that occur during shows, right? Someone getting up or someone saying something, right? Or when if they ask questions of the audience, then they can give like authentic responses because that authenticity is going to come through, right? because you've practiced speaking extemporaneously, right? You've practiced speaking off the top of your head rather than reading a script, right? And that's one of the things that I really wish people, speaking of like, one of the questions is, what do I wish people would have had taken advantage of more or listened to more, is that you are not going to have that many opportunities to speak in front of people, to practice, because practice, I should say, it's the number two item right here under the practice is take advantage of the opportunities that you're given. Because how often do you have an audience? Just think about that. How often do you have an audience? Everybody here had an audience at least 3 times during the semester, right? If you don't take advantage of those times that you have audiences, you're not going to be able to practice. You're not going to be able to improve, right? So that's one of the things I would say is like, take advantage of the opportunities that you can get, right? If someone offers you a chance to speak, take it, because it's all about practice and preparation. The more you practice, the better you will get at it, okay? And the other thing, so speaking of getting an audience, you can join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a international organization that of people who want to practice public speaking, right? So I joined a Toastmasters before, and I found the experience very good, because basically what it is, it's a bunch of people who need an audience who want to practice, right? They all want to practice their public speaking, and they have competitive events and all this other stuff. So it's very nice. But it's a bunch of people who need an audience to practice. And so this is a good opportunity to do that. And then you can join a social club. And usually a lot of people that join Toastmasters are, accomplished people, smart people, the kind of people you want to be around with if you want to continue developing your career in a, upward trajectory, right? Okay. Yeah. So next question, networking at professional events. So networking at professional events is like any going to a party, right? You just have to walk up to people and start talking to them, right? This is something you might have to practice, but that's, oral communication is essential. It's an essential skill in life to be able to talk to people, because there's a lot of people I've seen that want to have jobs where they just do their work and then they go home. They don't have to interact with customers. They don't have to interact with other people. They just do their work and go home, right? Those jobs don't exist for the most part, right? You have to be able to talk to people. One, even if your job was like that, eventually, like if you want to ask for a pay raise, you got to talk to somebody, right? So you have to be able to talk to people. You have to just walk up to people. One thing that so another thing, it's kind of old fashioned, but have a business card, right? Get some business cards made. I have I can show you mine. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna pause this. Okay, so my business card, Scheidler. I have the QR code that goes to my LinkedIn page, and then Sheldon Dunn, veteran, MBA, whatever, right? These are the things that I do. And then contact information on the bottom, right? On the back, I have a couple of other things. What I do, value creation, strategic management, organizational behavior, entrepreneurship, right? So have a nice business card to give to people so that they remember who you are. So this is another business card. This is not mine. This is one that I got at the last professional meeting I was at, but people have business cards, especially the older folks. And it's a nice little touch. It's a nice little touch. A lot of times these little things, I will say this. So one of our groups that did Honest Bee had little bee stickers, right? And that little thing, everybody noticed it. Just that little touch, you know? And a lot of people notice that little add-on, and it can definitely make people remember you, right? Okay. So yeah, have a business card. It's old-fashioned a little bit, but it's good to have them, right? So yes, approach people, start a conversation, be yourself, be a professional version of yourself during the day. The other thing is after hour socializing is a huge thing at these events, right? You have all these people, like for me, I'm going to all these groups with different like professors, high hoity-toity, people, but they are for the most part, they like to have a good time, right? They like to go out afterwards, have dinner, and get maybe not blasted, but they like to drink, right? Um, Whiskey, a lot of them drinking whiskey, wine, beer, whatever, right? I think the last time when I was at the Brazil function, we had some people, we were just walking around Sao Paulo, and they were offering like cannabis beer. And there's two of the four or five people that I was with were drinking the cannabis beer. I'm telling you, these people, the professors that you're working with, they might not show it in class, but they like to have a good time too. And after hours, this is these social events. This is like your after party, right? This is where you get to really get to know people and where you really get to provide a good impression, right? And get to remember people. Yeah. So relax a little bit more, and then practice talking to people. Career risks. This is a good one, right? Someone asked me what career risks I took that I don't regret, right? So um, I left school, my undergraduate, for 2 years. I was not planning on going back. And I was working construction in Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore, if you've never been there, it's a shit city. At least it was when I was there. And the places that I was at, kind of shit. But I was working at a construction company with my father. We were both running a Dunn Construction, right, in Baltimore. And I kind of came to the realization one day that this was not something that I wanted to do. My father was not a person that I wanted to be in business with. And so I decided to go back to school. And that was a great choice, right? I don't know how much of a risk it is. It's financial risk. Obviously, I had to assume more debt, but it worked out, right? Got my degree, and it's helped me throughout life, right? Second risk, I went back to got to school, went to school, and I got a job at Corning Incorporated, which is in upstate New York, not too far geographically from where I went to school. And Corning, upstate New York, for those of you who don't know, is it's sort of like it's not very vibrant, right? You got a bunch of old folks, grandparents and stuff like that living out there, and there's no nightlife. So I was drinking at home a lot. It was kind of depressing, right? Because there's not that many people out there that are the same age as you, and that you can relate with, have a good time with, right? So what I did, this is the risk, is I gave my job 3 weeks notice, saved up some money over a couple of months beforehand, and then I just packed up my crap, drove out to Boston, and started looking for a job there. I was living on my brother's couch for a couple of months while I looked for a job, and while I was looking for a job, I did other jobs. I was looking for a job related to in biotech, basically, so something related to my biology background. And so while I was looking for a permanent job, I was going to employment agencies, Manpower and Adecco, and there's another employment agency. I think I shared the link to it on Discord that's specific to Hawaii. So employment agencies are definitely a good way to get your foot in the door in a lot of companies, FYI. But anyway, while I was doing that, I was doing whatever I could for money. So I participated in a bunch of experiments or studies, I should say, at different universities. Not experiments. I weren't doing anything crazy, but filling out surveys for money. I had one that was like that paid pretty well, where they did like an MRI of my brain and stuff like that. So um, that's an option. You can make money doing that stuff. Not much, but in addition to that, I used to play a lot of baseball, so I was playing baseball with some rich people's kids because they will pay you money. It's like just to play baseball for like an hour or two, like $50, $100, whatever it is. They got money, right? There's people out there with money that pay you. Um, what else? And then I had a job as a basically like a handyman. So going around to different it was a property management company that managed a bunch of properties, and so they had like a few handymen on staff that would go out and check out fix minor issues. And if a job is too big, then you just do like more you have to contract that out, right? But basically that was what we did. We drove around Boston in a van and fix shit. Yeah, until I got a real job. Well, not to say that that's not a real job, but a job related to my degree, right? Next thing I did, lots of risks, right? Excuse me. So I joined the military, 27. I was 27 years old when I joined. And for those of you who don't know, 28 is the maximum age for the Air Force. So I was a old man already when I joined the military. Um, but it turned out great for me. Um, I was able to, I would never have come to Hawaii if it wasn't for the military. I never particularly thought of Hawaii as a place that I wanted to go until Uncle Sam sent me here. And now I like it. Like it. I enjoy living in Hawaii. And I lived in Tokyo for 3 years. I lived in Germany. I would not be here if I had not joined the military because I got my master's, my MBA, while I was active because they offer a tuition assistance to active duty personnel. And then once you get out, you have veterans benefits. So right now, I'm actually using my GI Bill to pay for my PhD program. So, and there's other benefits too, right? So that was a risk, and it paid off for me. Um, so when I was in Germany, I got out of the military uh, while I was in Germany, and I was looking for jobs, federal jobs in Germany. But the where I was located, Ramstein Air Base, which is like a NATO base, it was a very small amount of jobs offered, federal jobs offered, and most of those jobs would go to uh, spouses, officer spouses, usually, right? So what I did is I'm like, hey, I would like to move back to Hawaii, so maybe I'll start looking for jobs in Hawaii. And I got a phone number that could be called, from Hawaii, or from any stateside number, right? And I started applying to jobs. I got offered an interview, and the person thought that I was in Hawaii. um, and they said, "Hey, can you come in tomorrow?" I'm like, can I come in on Monday and do the interview?" So I flew from Germany to Hawaii. I stayed here for a couple of nights and then I flew back. The way back, it was like two 11-hour legs, one from here to Seoul, Korea. And I was in Incheon Airport for about 8 hours. And then another 11-hour flight from Incheon to Frankfurt, Germany. And I got the job. So that was a risk. I dropped like almost $2,000, probably more than $2,000 just to fly out here for the job interview. And then it worked out. Okay. The other thing, last thing, this one's still in development. I left the military, or sorry, I left the Department of Defense. I was a civilian at the time, the job that I flew out here to get. It got me to get some roots in Hawaii so that I could start, living here, buy a house and all that stuff, or buy a condo. And they had offered me so the way that it works in the DoD, right? It's a gigantic bureaucracy, right? So if your boss wants to keep you, he's like, "Hey, I want to keep you. You do great work. I want to give you a promotion." Well, before a person can give you a promotion, they have to write up a job description. They're going to describe exactly what you're going to be doing in the job, and they submit that to some HR agency in the mainland somewhere. Mine was in Connecticut, I think, right? So they review the job description, they give it a rating, And they say, this is what it is. So even though they changed the job description, gave me a bunch of additional duties, they said that it was not worth a promotion. So they rejected that. After they rejected that, I started looking at PhD programs, right? Because I had always wanted to get my PhD. My grandfather was a professor of geology at Rensselaer Polytechnic, RPI, in upstate New York. And I was assured they were going to redo the job description. They're going to add some more stuff in there. It takes a few months, but they're going to try again. They tried again, didn't work out. By then, I had already applied to several different programs, and I was like, hey, you don't want to keep me, you don't want to pay me more money, I'm just going to leave, right? So that kind of relates to that asking for a promotion, right? If they're not willing to pay you what you're worth, then you have to be willing to seek somebody who is willing to pay you what you're worth. Okay. But like I said, this PhD program is something that's still, any potential benefits are still materializing. So we'll see. I mean, I imagine that it'll be good. One thing that has helped me with is public speaking, right? I get a lot of opportunities to do that. So it's definitely helped me with that. Okay. Okay. Getting into teaching. So PhD programs, there's in case you ever want to, further your business education, there's the MBA, right? Master's of Business Administration. And then there's a DBA. In the Air Force, we call these douchebag airmen, but or dirtbag airmen. But a DBA is a Doctor of Business Administration, right? So a DBA is a professional degree, right? It's usually for someone who's looking for senior leadership positions, right? A PhD is a research/teaching degree. So if you're going into a PhD program, it's pretty much assumed, well, you have to teach, right? If you want to go to any universities, you have to be able to teach some classes, right? And so it was a requirement for me. And I mean, I've done it before. I haven't taught classes, but I did a lot of tutoring, and I did a lot of presentations. The different PowerPoint presentations and the jobs that I've done. But and then that is kind of like teaching, but it's a little bit different, right? Obviously, for teaching, I have to talk up there for, it could be a couple of hours sometimes at a given, time. So, but yeah, that's how I got into it. I've just always kind of enjoyed sharing, my thoughts with people, and now I get paid to talk about the things that I've been thinking about and learning how to communicate more effectively, because I can, I've noticed this with some of the other professors, right? I speak in abstractions a lot, as in like theories, not as closely related to real world examples, if that makes sense, right? So I'm sure you may have noticed, or now that I'm pointing it out, you may have recall some of that. But one thing that really has helped me with the teaching is trying to speak more in grounded terms, I think. Okay. Advice for students. So one of the question was, what is the one thing that you wish that people would take more seriously, that you say a lot? And there's probably a lot of things because to be honest, I think that everything that I say has importance, right? And that helps. I think having that sense of criticality, that you need this information, right? The information that I have can make you have a better life, right? And this is something I got from Tony Robbins, right? So I will share you this video. It's a fucking amazing video about public speaking. But that's one of the things that he talks about is, one, controlling the room with your energy, right? Two, believe that you have information that people need, right? If you have a belief behind that information, that if they heed this advice, your life is going to be materially better, right? And you, therefore, it helps you to give you energy, and it'll push you over those like stumbling times when you might be stumbling with your words, or it gets you outside of your head where you're wondering about what people are thinking, right? The individual words that you use when you're talking is not that important. It's about the whole body, right? Your whole body, your whole energy, and thinking extemporaneously, because you're going to come off much more authentic, and you're going to like bounce around from different examples and things like that. And it's going to be a much more effective communication. So, um, one of the things I ask people to do more is practice this in everyday situations, right? I say reduce the length, the distance between the thoughts in your head and the sounds coming out of your mouth. Now, not everybody has this problem. There's several people in our classes who are perfectly comfortable extroverted people, right? But for the most part, most people need to shorten that space. Most people are working on their inner dialogue, right? They're thinking, but those thoughts never trickle down into their mouth, right? They never externalize those thoughts. But I've talked about this before. Oral communication, the words out of your mouth by themselves, without any enthusiasm, without any like authenticity. If you're just reciting things, like I said, reading something, a script, your people are not going to be able to pay attention, right? If you're reading, this is one of the things why I talk about not reading from a script. If you're reading from a script, your voice naturally becomes more monotonous. It's more like even, not adding any personality, and then people will naturally drift in and out of that type of communication. You know, if you don't have some sort of like some energy behind it, or some enthusiasm or some belief in that what you're saying has some value, then it's going to come across like that what I even subconsciously, it's going to come across like I don't really need to listen to what this person has to say, because they don't even believe what they're saying is important, right? That's why I just don't want I would encourage you never to read off your slides, never to read off a script. Have some preparation, just um talk extemporaneously, talk off the top of your head. The more you do it, it's just something you have to practice. I'm a natural introvert, right? Natural introvert. I had to force myself to be able to talk in front of people, in this class, or in teaching, right? But the more you practice, the better you get at it, right? And this is true in all, not just in public speaking situations, but also in group communication. I talked about this before, right? You want to avoid having relevant decision making information in somebody's head that they don't feel comfortable divulging, right? And I don't want you to be that person that's uncomfortable divulging, right? Because, like I said, oral communication, just the words that you're saying, is very low information rate. Think about how much information can go through a fiber optic cable, and then think of the words that you're saying out of your mouth, that it's like even lower information because you're speaking monotonously or reading a script or something like that, right? So yeah, that's one thing. I saw a video recently or something. It was about how people without an inner dialogue, right? What that means is like a person without an inner dialogue is someone who just like wonders things out loud, asks questions out loud, pontificates out loud, right? They're completely externally living externally, right? This is what I would challenge you. This like archetype for those of you who are naturally introverts or don't really feel like talking or don't like talking in front of other people. I would challenge you to try to think of that type of person, right? And try to emulate that skill. It's a skill. I mean, obviously, some people need to rein it in a little bit, right? Because in a team situation, there's always going to be maybe the people who dominate the discussion, the people who don't, right? So for those people who do dominate the discussion, they've got to reel it in and be more cognizant of listening to people and making sure that you're gathering as much information from your other group and that it's being shared among everybody, right? But for the most part, people need to just talk, communicate, ask questions in class, right? That's one of those things where it's like, okay, you have a thought, a question, externalize it, right? Just externalize it. If it's not a good question, or the vast majority of the times other people are going to be having the same question, right? And you asking that question is going to help everybody, right? That's value co-creation. Um, yeah. Yeah, and so we're trying to get deep, especially in team situations. We're trying to get down to those deep hidden information in people's brains, right? Okay. Okay, last topic, test taking techniques. Um, Now I talked about this uh before, the accept then act mindset. Now this is about performance in the moment, right? When you have an interview, when you're taking a test, you need to trust you are going to get what you deserve, right? If you did not prepare enough, you're probably not going to be successful, right? If you did prepare enough, you will get the grade that you deserve, right? You will get the outcome that you deserve. And you just accept that, right? Accept that in advance, right? I did this much preparation. I'm going to get the results back for this much preparation, whether it's good or bad, right? So accept that outcome and then focus on the situation, right? Because if you did not prepare, or if you did prepare, the best thing you can do in that moment is to focus on using all the mental resources that you have at your command and performing as best as you can, right? Recalling the facts that you know that you've gone over, recalling the any if you let's say you've done an interview, you have a bunch of questions that you prepared answers to. So recalling all those things, maybe mixing and matching different parts of those things, you have to have some level of fluency with all this information, right? And so it's important that you be able to utilize the mental processing capability that you have in your brain in order to deliver that response as effectively as possible and in as little time as possible, depending on if it's a time test or something, right? So for actual studying, um, there's a principle in neuroscience that the more piece of information is integrated into your mind, the more likely you are to remember it. And what do I mean by integration? That I mean, okay, relate that piece of information to personal experience, right? Hopefully multiple different things in your brain. Oh, this reminds me of that. This reminds me of that. This reminds me of that. Those things, right? So that is integrating it into memories, right? The other way you can integrate this is your brain also has lots of space dedicated to your senses, right? So write down the information on note cards. The act of writing the information on note cards will help you remember it. Write down the information on a keyboard, right? Record yourself talking about the information and then listen to yourself talking about the information afterwards. All these are different modes of, rather than just reading something over and over again, taking notes is good. But all these are different modes of information that, again, it's going to integrate that information to all these different aspects of your brain, right? And the more you integrate it, the more then that type of information is going to be, you're going to be able to apply it in actual, in real life, right? Okay. Yeah. And then for certain other types of information, or tests, so like math is a language, right? And if you don't practice it on a daily basis, especially when you're preparing for a test, you're not going to be able to execute that language as quickly as you need to. So, for example, like the GRE, there's a lot of like math questions you have to answer super quick, right? There's a lot of like shorthand stuff that you have to be able to answer. And if you don't practice thinking of these things very, very quickly, and then you try to take the GRE, you're going to fail. Incidentally, if you do want to take the GRE or something like that, I used Smoosh or Swoosh, Skidoo. I have to look it up. I'll share it on Discord. I can't remember the name of the service that I used, but it was very helpful. I think I paid like, I had bought some books, some study books and stuff like that. But This was a very structured approach. They had lots of question banks. They had time tests, which is very essential for the GRE and those other big tests that you might have to take. Practicing real practicing tests is definitely good, because I think even when if you're taking the tests and you practice on your own, you tend to give yourself a couple of extra minutes here or there, or be like, oh well, I could have finished that if I was really sticking to the time frame. But if you have an actual timer, you actually have to finish. It's good practice. Okay, alrighty, that's all I got for today. The next question will be about personal development, or the next session will be about personal development. So I think there are probably going to be 4 of these. Yeah, so hopefully somebody found this interesting or useful. Let me know. All right, thank you. Bye.